All right, you bunch of yahoos, strap yourselves in for another episode of Dan and Don's Toxic Masculinity.
In other words, shut up, sit up, and pay attention.
And here we go. And welcome back to another episode of Toxic Masculinity, where we are here to entertain, offend, and defend anybody and everybody. We're here to offer up our political satire approach to our views on both national and international topics. We're just a couple of crotchety old farts that have a bad habit of speaking the truth, but won't let a few facts get in the way of a good story. We believe in America and Americans. If this isn't for you, well, then I suggest you change your channel now. We still believe in freedom of speech and will rub your face into the cow pie of reality. We will make you scratch your head or scratch your ass, hopefully not at the same time. Without further ado, my cohort in crime is none other than the man of men, Don the Predator Fry, and I, his trusty sidekick, Dan to be Severn, and always Don's faithful companion, Quinn.
She's over there taking a nap.
Yeah, Quinn's not ready for make her cameo. She was on it earlier there when she was getting makeup and lipstick and all that kind of
But
stuff.
she got halfway through your introduction and then just nodded off.
Yeah, just nodded off on me. And tonight's guests, we have Sara McMann, and Sara has actually kind of a lot of things that you've done there, Sara, from being an amateur wrestler to professional fighter, and I mean, especially going from is that, if I pronounce it correctly, Tacoma Park, Maryland, and now you're in California. I mean, basically you've crisscrossed the United States there, and you represent Team Alpha Male.
No, so I'm not with them anymore.
Okay.
I have my own gym. It's essentially more of like a jiu-jitsu gym. We do have like some wrestling and Muay Thai, but precision jiu-jitsu is where I train now.
Oh, okay. Okay, is that in California or is that back in Maryland or
Yeah, no, California. It's
California?
a little
You,
north
you
of Sacramento.
okay? So okay? Home now for you is California then?
Hmm.
Okay. Again, when you look through Wikipedia, it's like
Yeah, sometimes it's up to
three
date.
quarters of what I have written about me is wrong. It's like, oh, well, okay, I'm wondering if I'm the only one, or how do you correct this stuff? It's like, how do you contact Wikipedia and say, dude, wrong? So
I think that anyone can go in there and edit it. So
really,
anyone can really, yeah. And then
wow.
other people will kind of like verify it and stuff. So if it's like completely outrageously wrong, but apparently something slipped through the cracks.
Well, I say most people that understand this type of technology, but see, Mr. Fry and I are, we're knuckle draggers. So understanding all the aspects
We're
of
just
this high
striking two
tech
rocks
computer.
together to get a fire.
We're a little bit prehistoric in some of our antique antiquated ways right now. So that's why we have to have sharper people like Tony and that to help keep us in track.
Yeah.
So actually, I know where I want to start because again, it's something just very near and dear to my heart is amateur wrestling. So again, that's your first career, isn't it? Is it not?
Yeah, my first love.
I say that line all the time. It's literally it's my first love that I give credit for that spins off into everything else that has it carries over quite well in all the other professions that I have done. And I just know that a lot of MMA fighters, especially that come from the world of amateur wrestling, do very well for themselves. A lot of it has to do with I mean, especially if you're a successful wrestler, there's a kind of a boneheaded tenacity that you have to have. You know, well, I mean, would you not agree with that? I
I
mean,
agree with that.
it's because it's a lonely. First off, it's a lonely sport because it's just you. The definition of wrestling is it's a team sport based upon individual performances. The team can lose, and
Yeah.
yet you can go on.
It's a
I mean,
team sport based on points, not on how much you actually work together to get those wins. I mean, you do like, in the practice room, but uh, and that is like it. I'm not underestimating that at all. But when it comes to competition, nobody can save you. And then your success is really it's very much built on what you can bring to the table when you compete.
yeah, exactly. And again, you can't blame anybody else for what they did wrong because you're out there all by yourself.
I think that I realized kind of young that I was not a very good team player, because I'm, like most wrestlers, most successful wrestlers are pretty hard on themselves. And I could never be as hard on a teammate and still have a team as I am on myself. And so, but I call it like I see it, with even with my own mistakes, even with my own errors and my own career. And so I don't think anybody else really needed to be under that harsh judge.
So you said you started originally at what age for amateur wrestling?
14. I started in high
14.
school.
So that would be like like freshman high school.
Yep.
Okay. Now well, again, what intrigued you? Because if this your first launch to step into this, what intrigued you about it?
So my older brother, he wrestled since I think I was like 3 years old. So I grew up around it. We lived a lot in Pennsylvania, not just Maryland. And so I was always at weekend tournaments and I saw girl wrestlers there, especially when we were younger. And so I just, our whole lives revolved around wrestling, particularly when we lived in Pennsylvania. And when I wanted to go into sports, I was like, I'm getting into high school. Like, I think I should start doing sports. Wrestling just seemed like the natural one to do.
No, well, again, okay. Do you have just one other sibling, or do you have others? Yeah, you
No,
said
I have an older sister and an older brother. And
okay.
strangely enough, my older sister wanted to wrestle too, but my parents wouldn't let her.
Oh,
But
funny. So your
yeah,
oldest, okay. So she's the first on the total pole. So you have the oldest is a sister.
I'm the
Then
baby.
okay, then you're okay. So then your brother's just wrestling. Then you come in as the baby, and you go. All right, actually makes a lot more sense. It's when people are parents, it's kind of like they're testing out a lot of different theories on child number one. Child
Yeah.
number one gets a lot more spoiled than child number two.
Yeah.
Child number two comes along. When child number one is there and that pacifier hits the floor, I mean, they're sterilizing the pacifier the whole 9 yards. Child number two comes along, it's like, wipe it off,
Yeah,
right there,
yeah.
stick it right back in, good to go.
Child number 3 has to find it themselves and put it back in.
No, well, that's the thing about when you grow up in a bigger family, you learn to share and you learn what hand-me-downs are. You had older sisters, stuff like that. I'm sure you had hand-me-downs for older sisters and stuff like that. So I just happen to be a little bit bigger than my oldest brother. So again, but there was a lot of trips to Goodwill stores, Salvation Armies, to where's I going? Did we care? No, it was cool because it was new to us.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, I totally understand that. Like my parents, I grew up like we didn't have a lot and then we moved a lot. And so even now, like it came back more in style, but it's like I love going to Goodwill, especially for workout stuff, because just workout stuff ends up getting destroyed. So if I either get free gear from promotions or like USA Wrestling, or I get this cool stuff at the Goodwill that people have gotten rid of.
yep, no, that's again, that's cool that you have that kind of a background. So you're amateur wrestling, and tell us like that first year of you're freshman and you're trying to make the varsity team, or you're part of the team, and weight classes wise stuff like that, because wrestlers have this mentality of losing weight, trying to be this monster at a lighter weight class. And a lot of times it just kind of sucks because now you're missing meal after meal. How many different holidays have you missed that there was a great feast that was on that you couldn't eat?
Yeah, no, my whole wrestling career and even some of my fighting career, like uh my fight was scheduled like December 31st. So there goes like Christmas, like and couldn't eat too much for Thanksgiving and stuff, cutting down to 135. So yeah, it holidays are not like a big deal to me at all because of wrestling.
Yeah,
But
no,
so when I first came on the team though, we had moved to North Carolina and I was not thinking about, okay, I'm, starting and everything like that. I was like, okay, like, how am I going to stay on the team? Because it was such a battle just to be able to stay on the team. Um, it was the first girl that they'd ever seen being like living in the South. And so they were like, oh, well, girls can't wrestle. And me, having seen it in Pennsylvania all throughout growing up, I was like, Of course they can, like I have
Well,
2 arms and 2 legs, and I mean, really, honestly, that's not even 100% necessary.
well,
Like,
Pennsylvania is just one of those states that, I mean, it's rich in amateur wrestling history. You go through a lot of the Midwestern states and then Eastern states, they're just rich with history of great wrestling team after team after team. So, to me, it's when you say Pennsylvania, it's like going, well, heck yeah. I mean, most kids when they're born, they're not even they come out, they're not on their backs, they're on their bellies right now. So,
it's true.
so, but Oh, I lost my thought here right now. I can't believe that there. Mr. Fry, are you there for the
Shocking.
save?
I just watching you just bewildered. Yes,
Oh,
you
okay.
actually lost. Yeah, when my youngest daughter, we changed her diaper, she'd throw it on arm bar, and you could pick her up and she'd be wrapped up there and she's ready to go.
It's in the genes.
Yeah, they were both terrifying little monsters. And
Well, I
now
mean, I know what it was. I was going to ask you. You said you moved so much, but was your father like in the military or something like that, or was it just
So,
jobs? Or
yeah, so he did construction for Miller and Long, and so, like, he would move as they did different, like, really large, construction sites. So
okay,
moving around Maryland, and then also, all of our family lived back in Pennsylvania, Lock Haven University, or yeah, I went back to Lock Haven University, but Lock Haven is where my extended family's from, which is also called Matttown, USA. And so
good
yeah, I
name.
know. So I really was raised around it. But that's where my mom would move back because she just has so much trouble with my dad working such long, hard hours. And so she would get help from our family. And
Right.
then he would drive down to Maryland and come back on the weekends sometimes. So I think it was just hard. The cost of living in Maryland was so expensive. And then she was out there on her own. So like sometimes we'd stay in Pennsylvania and sometimes we'd go back to Maryland just so her and my dad could be together.
Yeah.
So we just moved
Well,
around a lot.
but a lot of that translates over to like a serious athlete that wants to be successful. You know, you live a very isolated life.
Mhm.
It's like your friends and family and stuff like that. They're like, well, come on over, let's go do this, and you're like, well, no, you got to put in your training time, or
Yeah,
you
yeah.
got to watch your weight and things of this nature. I mean, just being in high school, the typical lines was like, because I played football in fall, wrestled in the wintertime, and track and field in the springtime. But the track coach knew because I told him right from the get go, I'm coming up for track, but if there's a Saturday track meet and there's a Saturday wrestling meet, you're not
Yeah.
going to see me at the track meet. And which he would get mad at because I'm doing shot put, discus, and high and low hurdles, stuff like that. So I'm scoring points for the team, and he'd be mad about that. But I go, my future's not in track and field. My
Yeah.
future's in the sport of wrestling. There's this thing called scholarship money. Can I get some of that? Is what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. We were just actually talking about how your father had moved around quite a bit there for his construction and his job and stuff of that nature. So, is mom and dad are they in a station kind of a stationary place now?
No, no. So like they ultimately moved back to Lock Haven. And so like that's where they permanently resided after, I think it was after I finished high school.
Okay. So again, but you said that's where they came from. So they have family, they
Yeah.
have friends. So they can
Like
that all makes
all of
sense.
our family is there. So it's the best place to be.
Yep. Especially if you find that out as you get older, stuff like that, and especially when health and stuff starts to take a little bit turn for the worse, you want to surround yourself with family and friends as much as you possibly can.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's get back to it because again, there's one thing that I saw on your amateur wrestling that I definitely got to come back to because it shows when did you jump into freestyle wrestling? Because you're doing folk style, but when did you jump into freestyle?
So my first dip into freestyle was after my sophomore year. And so I 2 years of folk style wrestling, and then I was just introduced to it. And then when I was 16 years old, I went to the U.S. Open for the first time. I actually had to get a medical doctor to sign off to say that I was medically fit to wrestle women.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yep. I placed sixth
Dan will be
the
getting
first
one of those next week.
time.
Well, that's okay. Now, That was your first open because again, I'm trying not to let the cat out of the bag here yet, but you've competed quite a few times at the Open, but there was another tournament that's near and dear to my heart is the Sunkiss Open that you've been to
Yeah,
a great deal of times, that you've won
absolutely.
every single time, and I'm like going, wow. I go say this gal doesn't understand the background that we both share right now because the guy who started up the whole Sunkiss program, his name was Art Martori,
I know Art.
and
I'm a close
he
friends with
makes
Art.
he makes his. So you've been Art before?
Yeah, absolutely. I've met him tons of times. He's come with us to world championships. He went with us to the Olympics. Like he's
Yeah, no,
wonderful.
our goes to all those. I mean, he was a former wrestler at Arizona State, a successful businessman, successful agricultural farmer. I've
Yeah.
been on Art so many times. He's one of the reasons why I went to Arizona State University because I was a heavily recruited amateur wrestler. I took this. You were limited to six different trips that you could take. And I took all six of them. I went to both Iowa schools and both Oklahoma schools because they were the four provincial powers, and then Wisconsin, then to Arizona State. And but it was the head coach Bobby Douglas had met me as a sophomore. He thought that my older brother and I were a set of twins. He ended up offering us both full scholarships at that time. He says, "You guys keep on the right same track." He goes, "I'll be back to talk to you again." And there were
I'm
so
also
many different.
I'm a
Go ahead.
huge fan of Bobby Douglas.
Oh,
He's like one of my favorite coaches of all time.
He's
I
great.
mean, he's very. I mean, the guy. I mean, he gets crazy at times. There's times I've seen him in a room that it's like everyone out of the room, and it was like that wrestled him because what he was about to do to that wrestler probably is not the normal protocol of discipline.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because I had I had several of these other coaches. They were saying, "Well, Bobby Douglas, all he's trying to do is recruit an all black wrestling team." I go, "Well, then Bobby Douglas must be colorblind because my older brother and I just happen to be white." So it was just kind of comical because you
And
find out as a
his one
wrestler,
of his best wrestlers of all time is Cale Sanderson. So
yeah,
I think he just loves wrestling.
yeah, no, he does. He loves the sport of wrestling. He's given so much to Arizona State's program. He's given so much to the Sunkiss program. And
Yeah.
I believe he still has his one daughter. Actually, is like one of the executive officer of Sunkiss Kids there
Mhm.
as well. So he's trying to keep that in the family as well. But when I saw
Uh,
all the times that you went out to the Sunkiss Open and you not just going, you won it. So it's like
well,
going,
I'm a Sunkist kid. I'm part of the
what?
Sunkist Kids team. So,
Yeah,
and then Kim Martori is his daughter, and she's amazing. She's a really wonderful person, and
yep,
she's a hard worker. She does so much for the club. So, it's really it's an honor to know both of them.
yeah. No, it's again. Like I said, I could go into story after story with Art and stuff like that. He's that one guy that he always said, Saturday goes, "You're the only guy," because I visit him every now and then unannounced at his office. He says, first off, because you're the only guy that comes into my place unannounced. He says, he goes, they show up in raggedy old workout gear. Half the time when I stand up to shake your hand, I don't know if you're going to throw me into a Russian 2-on-1, a headlock, a body lock, going for, the suplex or something like that onto him. He says, I just think, I go, Art, someone's got to keep you on your toes.
Exactly.
But then he says, but then when he's get after my attire, I go, Art, I go, you're a businessman. I go, more than that, I go, you're a successful businessman. I go, how many men and or women come in here dressed to the nines? They got
Yeah.
all this jewelry and stuff like that. They're pulling this car, stuff like that, but they're up to here in hock. I go, I'm not here looking for nothing from you. I said, you got to be a sharp businessman to look past and you have to see the depth of that person. And
Hmm.
he's like, Seven, he goes, you cease to amaze me. I go, Art, did I hear a compliment coming out of you? He's a good guy, good man.
So I I continued to harass him. We were at World Championships one time, and I was the only person who would sit in the front seat with him because if you've ever driven with him, he's especially in like the Autobahn, like he goes so fast. But I
Yeah.
didn't care. I was like, it didn't bother me a bit. And he was eating some ice cream, and I was like, Art, that ice cream's gonna go straight to your ass. And he turned and looked at me, and he's like, You must have had a lot of ice cream, Sarah. I was like, oh, he got me.
Oh, yeah. See again. That's the kind of wit though that he has.
Yeah,
He's
no, he's sharp.
he likes that kind of banter or give and take and stuff of that nature. So I
Yeah.
tend to always call him every periodically just to rattle his cage, just see what he's doing, and let him know because I split my time between Michigan and Arizona. I'm
Yeah.
I'm in Michigan for spring, summer, fall, the nice time to be here. And then come
Mhm.
winter months, nope, I'm back out in Phoenix. And then I'll go into
Yeah.
pester him and let's go and see him and again try to see if I can get him into another Russian 2-on-1 or headlock or body lock on top of things. But no, just good. The whole family, just good people. Done a lot for the sport of wrestling, and there should be a monument or a shrine dedicated for what all he's done for that program. But then again, Bobby Douglas, first black head coach of any NCAA sport. He
I
went
didn't
through a
know
lot
that.
of persecution when he was first coming through things, and I witnessed it firsthand. And I'm thinking, holy moly, this man's got to have some true grit there to bear through some of the things that he has to go through at times. But as again, as more time passes, things eased up and become a whole lot better. Nope, he'll go down
I didn't
again for being one
I
of
didn't know
the
he was
greatest
the
coaches.
first. I
Yeah,
wasn't aware that he was the first. That's pretty amazing.
yeah, no, it was. He broke some different barriers himself again, but he was breaking a lot of barriers as a wrestler. You know,
Mhm.
there's even a great statue of him wrestling Dan Gable, and I actually was lucky enough to get one of those statues, and it's because it was it should have been him in the Olympic Games instead of Dan Gable at the time. So a lot of people
Oh,
don't even.
did they go with the same? I thought that they went different weight classes. I know
Eventually they did, but there's actually is a statue of the two of them wrestling.
I thought Bobby beat Gable twice.
He
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So,
So again, a lot again. I'm not here to take anything away from Gable. Good Dan Gable he
no,
had a
no.
phenomenal career, just like Chael Sonnen had a phenomenal career, and so many other wrestlers out of. I mean, like I said, Pennsylvania for the longest time. Hey, you almost wonder what's in the water because they produce so many phenomenal wrestlers. There's even a high school wrestling meet that's like the Pennsylvania All Stars takes on the United States. I mean, literally, they takes on the other 49 states.
Yeah, so it's a lot of dads who are very, very invested in their sons being wrestlers. So those kids get pushed very hard from a very young age. And I mean, like, not just the toughness too, but very technical wrestlers. So whenever I was at Lock Haven, I was around Pennsylvania state champs, New York, New Jersey, and Ohio, and like just the technical level of the Pennsylvania wrestlers were just, and I had to like play very, very fast catch up, even just to drill with them. It was awesome to be
Uh,
around. It was really good for me.
but like I said, look how it transitioned or carried over to your MMA career. When did you first, I guess, hear about MMA or thought of the idea of going from one to the other?
So I knew that I was going to retire from wrestling after 2008 trials, and I would have retired if I had gone to the Olympics that year. I would have retired after that team, but I got pregnant with my daughter, which was, I had planned to wrestle, retire, have a baby, and then I was going to just do jujitsu. And then my friend was like, "Hey, I think that you should do some striking too. I think you'd be good at MMA." And I hadn't really heard about MMA, so I tried out the striking, like just hitting mitts and stuff like that. And I was like, "I love it." I was like, "I love it. This is great." And even sparring was not enough to deter me, because I was like, mm, "Yeah, I get hit, but also I get to take them down. And when I take them down, I get to hit them, and they can't really hit me. So that's like, this is a lot better if I just do this." But,
Yes.
like if you take all of them together, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and striking, and you have MMA. So I gave myself 1 year just to kind of like, before I have even my first amateur fight, just to see if it was for me. Because like I was gonna put no pressure on myself and say like, do I like this sport? Is it something I really want to get invested in? Because I'm the kind of person that when I do get invested in something, I'm like, I'm all in. I'm like
Mhm.
borderline obsessive about it. And so I gave myself time not to like say, okay, well, I have to do it because I said I'm going to do it. I'm like, no, I have 1 year to decide if it's what I want or don't want it, what I don't want. And by the end of the year, I was like itching to take an amateur fight. Couldn't wait to get my pro debut going. Like, so I, fell in love with it too.
Well, in your matches, do you use a lot of your wrestling background?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I
Give
think
me
I
some
just
examples because I know what I'm looking for right now, but give me some examples of what you do.
So on the cage, it's hand fighting, like it's hand fighting and wrestling. Like for
Mhm.
me, if you throw a punch, if I can slip your punch, we're wrestling. Like
Yes.
that's you've already removed the barrier of your head position. Once your hands are out of the way, it's nothing but your hips. And I'm a lot better at taking people down, whether it's in a good stance or whether it's standing straight up, which is even easier. It's like taking candy from a baby, taking down people who are upright. But I think I just really love grappling. I love just getting my hands on people. I love feeling that control. I love dominating. I love breaking people. Like it's just something that
Wait. So, okay. What was that last time? You like breaking people?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. No, we talked about this
Everybody,
before. Please,
every wrestler knows
what do you
that.
mean by that? Breaking people?
Um, Forcing them to give up. I mean,
Is that a physical thing? Is it a mental thing, or is it a combination?
so you can break physically and you can break mentally. Personally, I would rather break somebody mentally.
Hmm.
Breaking somebody physically, they can always rally the troops. Their mind is strong. They can always try to come back and they can do something. But mentally, they could have all the energy in the world. And if you've mentally broke them, you're just drilling at that point. You're doing anything you want. And there's just no more satisfying feeling. Like you can, I don't know how to describe it to people because unless you've done it, like you could just physically feel somebody who's broken. And it's a great feeling. And
No,
I'm one
no.
of those
Again,
people who
you're
likes it.
you're making me. I need to get a tissue here right now. I just it's like, oh, you said exactly what I'm looking for because
Where did you learn your hand fighting? Because that was big. Bobby Douglas was big on hand fighting, and hand control.
So I think that my first coach, his dad was a preacher and in the military, and so he was just as mean and hard nosed as you come. We had 3 hour practices, and he loved Gable. So the Iowa wrestling, like hand fighting, the clubs that were borderline punches, like making them, punishing them in every single position.
I
That was
think that's
our
called
practices.
a collar tie, isn't that a collar tie?
I
That
only know
club
a
that they.
club. I don't know a collar
Oh
tie.
yes, yeah. I I call it, yeah, exactly that. So I know what I'm doing when I tie up the people because, like as you said before, that that reach, that point of contact, that speaks volume because now you're within striking range of hands, but again the legs a little bit longer, so you always gotta look at, okay,
Yeah,
what is the range for legs, what are the range for hands, stuff like that. And wrestlers are good for working from what they know as point of contact and to work off of that point of contact. And but to get to a just a takedown, open takedown on open ground, or to clinch them in open ground, or to jam them up against the cage wall. Once you've done one of those three things, you've neutralized 99% of any striker's ability. They can't strike you when they're in a
yeah,
clinch position. That's where you see sports like boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and karate. That poor referee spends more time separating the two athletes and going, no, 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 none of that huggy, squeezy, this type of stuff taking place here. But in MMA, you could be, because I mean, Sarah, I was a one-trick pony. I was just an amateur wrestler that just jumped into it. But I and
yeah,
I and I said we knew that I'm not going to win this because I suck with my hands, and I think my track record proves for it that I suck with my hands. But if you miss that opportunity, I am going to do one of those three things, and I welcome you to my world because even though you're in that clinch, you'd be surprised how you can pop with that shoulder, jaw jack them, and things of that nature. Or again, back in that day, you could do head butting,
yeah.
stomping, knee groin shots, the whole 9 yards. So it was like going no holes barred. Yeah.
I will give a little shout out to the Muay Thai fighters. I feel like some of their clinch game, like they're pretty good. They're pretty strong. Like it feels really familiar, like stuff with wrestling. So I'll give a like of all the strikers, the Muay Thai fighters seems to have like a little more comfort with that closeness. You know, they're
Well,
like, okay, here's where I can elbow you. Here's yeah. So they do a
well,
lot better.
no, I like what you said there about Muay Thai because it offers up like boxers, they're just worried about the hands. Kickboxers, they're worried about hands and feet. But when you deal with Muay Thai, they're throwing elbows, they're throwing knees. They're showing all kinds of weapons. So yeah, what you said before about if you could take that amateur wrestler, give them something of that Muay Thai background and a little bit of that BJJ or Jiu-Jitsu or something like that, you got the perfect storm
Mhm.
about to happen.
But wrestlers do so well. Like I think at one point they had like 9 out of 10 champions were wrestlers in the UFC. So
Yeah. Yep. That's well again, that's where well when you look at the history of it, who were half of the owner was Horian Gracie, one half of the Gracie family, and then basically they were it was a more of a marketing machine for
it still is.
Gracie Jiu Jitsu. Oh no, yes, yeah. So I mean it did well, and then actually the businessman that came up with the idea, the whole concept of this cage was Art Davie, and he even wrote a book that's called "Is This Legal?" Because I mean he had a hard time finding a state and an athletic commission that would run with him on that, and it came about to where now it's well again within the last few months you've got professional wrestling WWE is now underneath the same umbrella as the UFC joined together, and now who knows what this is going to do other than it will give some MMA competitors a longer extended life as they cross over into wacky world of professional wrestling. But you're not going to see any professional wrestlers that are going to cross over to the world of MMA because fantasy meets reality. It's an ugly reality
Yeah.
that will come out. Yes,
A whole lot different when you're locked in a cage with somebody who's trying to beat your ass.
yes, yeah,
Very different world.
yeah. Well, have you ever been like hit so hard that just kind of like your whole skull feels like it went gong and you're like going, okay, I see three people.
I've had it from a kick. I've been
Oh,
kicked and my whole head gonged and I froze solid. And for some reason I had a smile on my face. This was during sparring. It was just an accident. And I was smiling and I froze and I started to fall into my partner. He was like, "Are you okay?" And he caught me. But like because I came to and I was like, "I think I just got like a concussion." And he was apologizing because he didn't mean to kick me. I was reaching for a leg and he was like, I was like, "Man, I hate that I was smiling when you did this because that kind of gives you the signal that like I'm okay." I was like, "You could have like hit me
yeah, and
several
he
more times."
might have kept coming. Yeah.
Yeah. It's lucky he realized that like my whole body like kind of just stiffened. He realized something was not right. I think he felt the connection too, and he knew that it was a really hard kick. So
This was actually said in a training session, though, right?
yeah, I've never been kicked in an MMA fight that
Okay.
hard. I learned how to
Well,
block. This was like younger in my career. I was not as good at reading what
diversified.
yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's well, fighting good workout partners is not easy. I mean, it's
Especially
ran
female.
my own training facility, and I had to tell these guys because I was also my first profession was a professional wrestler as of the
Mhm.
92 Olympics, and then UFC started up in 1994. Actually, December 93 was when they officially started on up. So I first was doing professional wrestling, so I had all these professional wrestlers come in there, and then these MMA fighters, and these guys. It doesn't matter if they're putting on headgear, they're still smacking the dog poop out of each other. I'm like going, dude, the headgear. And again, I've heard trainers say this. I go, wear this headgear. They're not going to break your nose. You're not going to get cut. But I go, that gray matter called your brain is being sloshed all over the place. I go, I don't care if you're wearing that headgear or not. I mean, none of my guys wear headgear because I call the head the pumpkin. I go, the pumpkin is basically off limits. I go, you can go to touch. I go, and when you are really skilled and you can go throw a jab out there to touch, when you're time for match time, oh, you're a scary cat, especially if you can throw it out and verbalize it there too, because the more senses that you can incorporate, it's pretty wacky. Even when you do your grappling, a suggestion for you is grapple with your eyes closed
I do.
because your sense.
I've
Oh,
been
you do?
wrestling too. Yep.
Oh, again.
Yep.
uh,
So I'm a real kinetic learner. So I can visually learn, but I really pick up a lot by feel. So like I will like when I'm grappling, I'll close my eyes just so my body can feel everything that's going on. Because I think I feel like I process it a lot faster than what I
Not
can
only
see.
not only do you feel, but you could hear how you could hear the other person. Are they starting to labor for breath? It's like going, oh, that's a little motivation. It's like going, let's put the grind down a little bit more. Let's test
Yeah, yeah,
How much more H2O they have in their lungs.
Yeah, they used to give me a
yeah,
tool in pro wrestling because I'd close my eyes in pro wrestling, and that's stupid because you're supposed to, you're supposed to keep an eye on your partner, your
partner.
dance partner,
Yeah.
to know what you're doing. Um, shit. What was the question? Uh, were you more nervous for your first wrestling match or for your first MMA match?
First wrestling match beyond a shadow of a doubt. My first wrestling match, I thought, I'm not joking. I literally thought, I will sell my soul to the devil right now to get out of this. I was so nervous because
Wow.
I was in North Carolina. I was the only girl in the entire state. So I was wrestling boys. My whole high school career, I wrestled boys when in high school. Uh, it was terrifying because so if you got to think about it too, like I had never done any other sport. So I had no competition, like history to draw from. I went and actually for a long time I didn't even know that other sports didn't train like wrestlers. I had no idea. Like I had no reference. So my very first match, I was like terrified. But I was just like this mean little girl. So I was like, I just had this little tough girl face on, but inside I was like, I'll do anything to get out of this. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Why do I think that just for one match? It's like a JV match. So obviously I powered through it.
Well, yeah. Say, how did you make up with your very first match ever? Did you
Um, so
did you
the
did you win? Did you
first match
lose?
I ever
Did you?
had, I lost. They put me
Okay.
against a 3-year starter, their captain. And then yeah, because I think they were trying to send a message to a girl, and my coach, he blew a gasket. He was so mad at who they had paired me up with, and he stuck up for me. He fended for me, and he's like, put her against another first year wrestler like you would
Right.
every other guy on here. And I beat that guy like 7-3. Um, and he started crying, and then I went over and I tried to comfort him, which apparently I didn't know is not a good thing to do to guys after they just lost to a girl. That's like adding a lot of insult to injury. I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry. You did really good," but he didn't. I beat the
Here, try these shoes. They'll look good on you.
Yeah, exactly. I think pink's your color. Yeah.
Because because okay
The
on
very
a
first
cover.
one, I got my butt kicked really bad.
Oh, oh yeah, no, it's wow. I mean, how many matches did you have before that you finally won a match? I mean,
Uh,
or that you went up against another female, maybe?
oh, okay. So my first female I ever wrestled with was the U.S. Open.
You're kidding? You have to go to a
There was
national tournament in order to wrestle your first female?
Yeah, there were no females. I was the only one in the entire state. And then I got the number one girl in the country, and she teched me. And then I wrestled back through the tournament, and I ended up placing sixth. So not too shabby my first go out there, but I definitely realized the levels there were. But man, I think that people don't understand unless you are just very naturally athletic. Everybody gets their butt beat a lot in the beginning of wrestling. Like you just pay your dues and you get beat a lot until you start beating people. And that's just, if you can't weather that storm, you're just not going to hack it.
What was the first tournament you won?
The first tournament I won was my senior year. I wrestled in the first ever women's high school nationals. In the guys tournaments, I had come in like third or fourth, but I never got to the finals against the boys. I wrestled at
Now, wait a
130.
second, Sarah.
What?
Women are equal to men. We all know.
They are. They're equal. But you know what happens? Men hit puberty. And I learned that my sophomore year when all my training partners left for the summer. And they came back and they were 15 pounds fucking stronger than me. And I was like, oh.
Again, but there's muscle mass. Because you hit it. Okay, when puberty hits, there's a whole difference there between what happens to him when a boy becomes a man.
Yeah.
Big time.
Nope. Absolutely. So that's the funny thing is like anybody talking about like men and women, it's like, man, if you were a wrestler, you wouldn't even be having this discussion. Like
Yeah.
you know the very real differences because all of my training partners, every guy I competed against, they had their own goals. It wasn't personal. They were going to beat me like they were going to beat anybody you put in front of them. And it was just no mercy whatsoever, but they had to get their training in. And so I just went as hard as I could and competed at 130, which is it's a tough weight. They're fast and they're starting to get strong there, starting to get pretty strong. So, my junior year I started and I was like 11 and 19. And my senior year I was 15 and 13. But I killed myself to even have above 500 record.
Yeah, about 10, 15 years ago, I was with Dwayne Ludwig and Boss Rutan. They were doing a seminar over in Austin, Texas, and I was helping them out. And I wasn't teaching; I was just helping them demonstrate to bouncing between group teams, 2 and 2 and 2. And I got in there with these 2 girls, and I said, now guys are stronger. You might want to try this, but adapt it to your own style because guys are stronger than women, and girls, and they can do this. I got fucking fired for saying that.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's like
listen, I would never, if fighting were co-ed, I would have never started. There's no way I would let a 135 pound man hit me. Not a freaking chance. Like, so, I mean, I don't care. Anybody can say whatever they want. It's when you feel the very, very real physical differences. I don't need to go and listen to any biology report about what testosterone does. I could feel it the second those guys hit puberty. And when I wrestled guys who were tall and long and lanky and hadn't hit that, man, they were like Gumby. I could move them around. I was stronger than them. But the second they hit that growth spurt, it was like, that's it.
That's where I think we got to put an end to all this bullshit about chicks with dicks doing to compete against chicks without dicks. Go to the testosterone, test them all for testosterone, and if they have a testosterone level, they're out there. And that way.
Well, just as much as I don't want females having elevated testosterone levels either. Right. It's a performance enhancing drug, and I'm definitely not for.
You don't have it, and then if they test these he/she's, and they have testosterone, they're out there. You're disqualified.
So I was talking to one of my friends about it, and I said, if people, I have no problem with anybody who wants to be, like whatever. When you want to be called whatever, that's never an issue with me. But I say when you want to go into sports, I think that females transitioning to male who are taking hormones, and males who are transitioning to female, all of them should compete against men. They should all compete in the male category, because then if you truly love the sport, if you just truly want to do it, then you would be in a more level playing field. All of them would, but none of them should come into female sports.
No, not at all.
I just don't feel like it's right. I feel like, and I think the numbers and people coming in and blowing records out of the water, they speak to exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, they're going to end up killing a girl is what's going to happen in the fight game. They're going to have this shit happen in the fight game, and they're going to kill somebody.
So I think that it won't get that far because females have the opportunity to say no to any fight. So I think that like girls will just say no and their fight career will just die out.
Here's an off the wall question for you. Who do you think's better at planning for the future, aka maybe saving some of their person's money, stuff like that? female competitors or male competitors?
Let's see.
Because there's always you look at all like you name the sport, football players,
Yeah.
basketball players, baseball players, MMA guys, gals that they've won lots of money, but then later on they don't have two nickels to rub together. But I'm just wondering
Except
what
for Dan
category do you
Severn.
think
Dan
you might?
Severn's got that nesting chromosome that
Wait,
yeah.
Don, you're influencing.
No,
No, no fair, Don.
if I'm answering honest, I would say I have to say it depends on the individual because I've seen some females blow through every single bit of their money when they've gotten it, and I've seen some males do the same thing. So I think that females have caught up to the males when it comes to that money burning a hole in their pocket. But if I was forced to, gun to my head, choose, I'd say females probably a little bit smarter with their money than the guys.
Again, I would say that hands down. Exactly, just what you said there, hands down.
But
See, this
okay, I've seen
Sarah
some
Rochelle
girls.
knows. Anytime Don gets a chance to zap me right there, because this here is Dan Severn's fanny pack. Okay, and he goes and Don knows that my fanny pack is kind of like Fort Knox. That's
Yeah.
how the kind of security that I
That's a
have with
safe
it.
deposit box, he just carries it around.
Yeah, yet he knows that if it ever gets unzipped, the bombs that would come out of it. Yes, because it's a one-way street. I like it all coming in, none of it going back out.
No, not at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, but like I think the females are definitely what I think the big difference is now like the Instagram, you have to impress everybody and I think females are just as susceptible to that, trying to impress everybody with expensive things and whatever as the males are. And probably the males maybe still a little bit more, maybe their toys are a little bit more expensive, but I've seen some really broke girls that needed to fight as well.
yeah. No, that's sad when you. It's kind of like I gotta go buy this big expensive car, stuff like that. And you don't even have a house. You're just renting an apartment, something like that. It's like going, you just don't have your priorities right whatsoever. But
But
that's
I think it makes people feel like that whole like famous person game, like oh, I'm famous and now I have all these, I don't know. I don't know. I've never really cared much about that, but that's probably not the UFC way. They want people who are flashy and a lot more outgoing and will blow all their money, not me.
Yeah, no. That's so again. I'm not even gonna bother to entertain and throw a few names out there that kind of fit that category because I don't want. I'm not here to plug those individuals in the first place. I'd rather speak to people that come from a more humble background. I look this way. Here's the only political question I'm going to ask you.
Mhm.
If our country was run by a bunch of wrestlers, where do you think we'd be at now instead of where we really are?
Uh, if I think if our country was run by a bunch of wrestlers, I think we'd be doing a lot better off. And I think that there would be a lot less corruption and a lot more punishment for anybody who was corrupt.
Ooh, I like that punishment line right there because again, I'm big about this because I always get mad about. I go if for example, if a criminal has been sentenced to death, they sit on death row for next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
That's too easy for wrestlers.
Yeah, to me, it's like going, why not next week? Why not? Okay, we just said it. Why don't we just do it that afternoon? Because when you look at what it costs taxpayers to keep this person incarcerated, but then to keep them healthy with medical, dental, optical that you and I are paying for, and now our tax dollars goes to pay for a criminal that's sitting on death row.
Instead
I
of
don't get
that,
it.
maybe be working and serving and giving back to a country as like penance.
Well,
Like
again, there could be
and
well again there was going back in time, there were the chain gangs and stuff like that. They used to go out there and actually do road work, things of that nature. But that doesn't happen anymore.
I don't think that's a bad idea.
No, again, that's where it's what you got labor there. It's like put it to work to where again you give them some kind of pen. I don't know. I don't know. Again, I just If Dan Severn was in charge of our prison systems, there wouldn't be very many people in prison.
No, no.
But it would be the number one pay-per-view you would want to watch.
Yeah, probably.
Because you got 5 times Beth O'Malley over here going against, 2-time killer over here right now, and we'll have a little Coliseum to the death match.
You like the Running Man.
I think
Yeah,
if wrestling were running,
exactly. We'd have the Running Man for real.
yeah. I think
But
also
again, to
they
make
wouldn't
certain
have
that
food
only
pyramid.
like 80% of the winnings would go to the family that got hurt in the process, and the last 20% or so, 20 to 25% goes to the facility to keep feeding and towards, like, there's no free rides.
Yeah. And I think that we also would have like a much healthier country. I think people would be taught the right ways instead of all those scams and gimmicks and take this pill and lose 30 pounds. We would be like, yeah, get that out of here. That's just going to kill people. We would teach the right values for people to be healthier.
Yeah. Well, even like what you talked on to the steroids. I mean, it's when you look at an industry like bodybuilding, we have all these men and women that are supposed to be the pinnacle of health and wellness, with their muscular build and stuff like this, and hourglass shapes, and it's kind of like going, and yet they're some of the most unhealthiest people in the
Yeah,
world.
it's true. Uh, I'm glad that I still feel like wrestling is relatively untouched by steroids. I think that like some individuals here and there might choose
Sure.
the wrong path, but on the whole, wrestlers look at it like if you have to do that, you're not tough enough. You don't have the mental strength and like the physical grit to survive our sport because being strong is just only one small aspect of wrestling. There's so much more to it that makes a great wrestler that I don't think it's as much of an enhancement as it is with other sports, but man, it is rampant in MMA and jiu-jitsu. It is like, and it's not frowned upon. Like there's a couple people that have really kind of like lost their popularity because of doing it, but most people, those guys get hit with a fine, get a suspension. By the time they come back, they're just as beloved and it's like, I don't know. I think that's wrong.
I,
Well,
you know what?
I agree with you.
I just agree with both of you. I think shit, load them up, let them go.
Well, again,
Okay. Fuck,
Listen, if it's legal,
get rid of the cocaine and like pride, you in the
well, so
contract.
look, if it's legal, then have a league that does that. Have a super duper. We'll see what humans can do, but have a natural league too for people who don't want that and don't let
And who
really.
would watch that? Who would watch that when it comes?
I know.
It's like natural bodybuilding versus the induced bodybuilding.
The pros.
At least we could do it. At least we could do it if we wanted to. You wouldn't be nearly as richer and as famous, but if you wanted to do MMA, and I love doing MMA, then I wouldn't have to go against somebody, juiced to the gills, because it's such an unbelievable advantage. Yeah, but you guys also like in your era, it was not even illegal.
Huh?
I was like, in your era, it was not illegal. I'm sure it was probably encouraged.
Yeah, they and the Pride contract said we do not test for steroids. They test for everything else, but not steroids.
Yeah. And if you need anything, give us a call.
And
yeah.
I was sitting there before the Ultimate 2. Had my interview with Dr. Richard Estrigo and his wife, and he says we're thinking about testing for steroids. What do you think? I said I think you're gonna run out fighters. And his wife, his wife was like, "Yep."
You better give them a really well. So there is always that transition period. Like even with the TRT, it was legal for a long time, and there's got to be like a buffer period between the people who were taking TRT legally, and then they are now, going to compete without it. There has to be some kind of warning. And before, it wasn't illegal to fight with steroids. So give a lot of headway, give that time for people who chose to do that, but now they want to compete legally. But I'm just from the era of the Olympic track. which is never, never, don't even take eye drops from the store unless you know it is approved through USADA, you know?
I mean,
So like,
I'm from the era. Wind them up, let them go. I mean, that's all there is to it. Let's see what happens.
I would not have survived that era. I would have had a very dud career and I would have been done.
Sarah, I was at the Olympic Training Center up in Colorado Springs the year
Mhm.
that they first opened it back in 1976. It
That's
used
pretty
to be a
amazing.
military base. The
Yep.
wrestling room, they just knocked down a few walls, they laid the mats out. That was our wrestling room. That's what we
Yeah.
started off there with. Now to see it today, wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible what it has grown to be.
It is. It's phenomenal. The dorms are still like barracks though, but the rest of it is like it's huge. It's beautiful. It's
Well,
really
they'll probably
amazing.
keep certain structures there forever, and they'll probably never change, but just with a coat of paint. But other stuff, other technologies and advancements, oh, they'll continue to bring them on in. I mean, it's a great facility that you've got some people working on just cutting edge products all the
Mhm.
time. What's next for Sarah McMann? What's next for you?
So
What's coming up?
I have a fight October 7th in San Diego for Bellator. I previously fought for the UFC for 10 years and now I fight for Bellator. It'll probably be my last contract, but maybe not.
No, is Bellator, is that with Scott Coker?
Yep.
Okay. I just wasn't certain if he was still the president of that organization because there was a point in time that towards the end of my career I was trying to chase down Ken Shamrock, Hoist Gracie, and Mark Coleman because all three of them had tested positive for controlled substances,
Yeah.
and yours truly has been lifetime chemical free on that part there, and then when I finally I came up with okay, I'm at the Dan Severn's getting old. It's time for me to depart. I parted with a clause. I go, I'm going to retire now, but if one of these three men were to step up to the plate, I would seriously contemplate coming back out of retirement, just depending on how long has it been? Did I balloon up to over 300 pounds? And I'm eating bonbons on my couch. And no, I'm not going to be coming out of retirement at that point. But an opportunity did come out, and with Ken, and I mean, I have only previously I'd done two training camps, one for 32 days, one for 35. That's it for
Yeah.
UFC number 5 in the Ultimate. And the rest of the time, I done all these matches. I just simply I just ran practices at my training facility, and I loved it when there was an odd number of people because when there's an odd number of people, I get to play. But when there's
Yeah.
even numbers, I'm just the barking sergeant, blowing whistles, got the timers going, and just keeping everyone motivated and going. And opportunity at hand, and literally like 2 weeks before the match, Ken bows out because he's got an opportunity with Hoist. And I'm thinking,
Oh,
I'm so pissed because I trained for 4 months. I never put in that much time into something there. I mean, I was down to a weight class I hadn't seen in probably a decade or more because I just told myself that if this was going to be the last time anyone was ever going to see me, they were going to see the best dance ever I could
mhm.
possibly put out there. And but then, so I contacted Scott. I go, Scott. I go, I hear you got Hoist and Ken for your main event. I says, what about bringing me in to be a play-by-play color commentator? I go, I've got history with both of these guys. And he kind of like poo-poos onto it a little bit there. I go, I'll tell you what, I'll sweeten the pot there for you. I'll take on the winner of the two. And he goes, these legend matches. He's kind of like poo-poos on that again. There, I'm like going, well, I'll tell you what, best offer I can give you is a good old-fashioned Kmart 2-for-1 special. I'll fight them both in the same night. One at the beginning of the show, one at the very end of the show. I said it's going to be done old school. Neither one knows who goes first. You take them both out there the night of that show and you flip a coin with them both in that cage, and whoever loses, that's who I take on first because Dan Severn is fresh as a daisy. So, and I can't believe he turned it down. I go, that's probably the last time I ever spoke to him. I go, I got nothing else to say.
That explains
Yeah,
why
that would
that's
be
why
great.
nobody knows when Bellator's on the fucking show. Who you fighting?
Leah McCourt.
And who's that?
What do you know about her?
So she's from Ireland. She's a real tall fighter. I think that she had done a little judo when she was younger. But but then she got back into MMA later. She's ranked number 5. But that's all I know. I think she likes jujitsu. Oh, she's a jujitsu black belt.
You're really
What?
worried. You're really worried about her, eh?
I don't try to worry too much about anybody. I just take care of myself.
No, again, just for what you explained, and again, how you have conducted yourself into this interview and with the answers, stuff like this. There's you'll do just fine. You'll do just fine. I know if I was a bet person, I know who I'd be laying
I
the bets
appreciate
on. So, and it's not going overseas anywhere.
Thank you. I know. I'm glad it's at home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sarah, what do you have any like social media outlets you want to plug here? Any
I mean, I have
or
Instagram, I have Facebook, but people can find me. Just Sara McMann.
okay, just McMann.
Hmm.
Okay, Sarah McMann. And I guess I mean I know we've been asked a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for Don or myself?
No, I don't. We kind of covered a lot.
No, again, well, we both appreciate having you on here this evening, and I know we talked an awful lot about amateur wrestling, but again, we both come from the same mindset there that you share with us there. The fact that you look at that bone that density, tenacity of that wrestler, there's nothing like it. It teaches you the sport. There's just the fundamentals that it teaches you that it carries over into life, whether it's in your work,
Well,
other stuff.
I'll share one thing with you. I had the honor of going with it's called the U20 team. So it's 20 and under. It used to be like the junior world team. I went to Amman, Jordan this week with them. 5 out of our 10 girls got food poisoning, really, really bad food poisoning, to the point that 2 of them had to get IVs. Every single one of them went out there and wrestled. 2 of them, one of them got a gold medal. Her name's Amit Elor. Teched everybody, didn't get a point scored on her. And this girl was like barely getting through her matches, barely, like
Wow.
physically destroyed. The other girl placed 3rd, and she was like almost passing out. She was but I've never been more proud of the toughness of my sport than people with I would rather have any injury than food poisoning. And they were wrestling in a world championship. And so that's the toughness that our sport has. There's nothing that's going to stop us.
Oh, I agree with you. On a more comical note, I mean, because I've had a number of international trips, and they always warn you ahead of time. Don't drink the water. They always drink bottled water, but sometimes they don't tell you that they fill the bottles up with tap water.
Yeah.
And you're out on the mat wrestling some of the best people in the world, and you got Montezuma's Revenge, and you're trying to keep a sphincter muscle cinched together, and you're trying to do it. And okay, raise my head so I can run off the mat here real quick. Oh, I mean, to talk about some embarrassing moments. So
yeah,
you learn real quick in international travel to bring along a few things that will settle your stomach, stop you up, and always have a roll or two of American toilet paper.
Yep.
Because the first time I went to Russia, I said, no one's going to believe me what this Russian toilet paper looks like. So I brought back a roll. I mean, it's like 80 grit sandpaper. I'm thinking, you wonder why they all have a scowl on their face. Here's the reason,
Exactly.
So.
It's terrible.
Well, Sarah, thank you very much. And Mr. Fry, again, I'm not here to cut you off, but I'll leave any last question there for you, Mr. Fry.
No, you hit it all, partner.
So, I mean, it's Sarah, we really appreciate it, and we'll probably like to touch base with you again, maybe another 6 months to a year, just to see how life is continuing for you, and to just bring up people any new updates in your life.
Absolutely.
Last time, plug your social medias one more time.
It's just Sara McMann in Instagram or Facebook. So I don't have TikTok. I'm just I don't do it.
Okay, well, you got the 2 ways that they can get a hold of Sara McMann.
I don't trust the fucking commies either, man.
Sarah, thank you
Okay, I
very
don't
much.
trust our government either.
No,
Well,
there you go, sweetheart. All right. Hey,
Yeah, well,
yeah. I don't
I was
trust.
like, I don't trust one of them.
No, hell no. And while they're listening, right here, tell you about it.
again, that's why we're called toxic masculinity. We're just two old farts expressing our opinions. Sarah,
Yes.
thank you very much, and look forward. Best of luck there to you. Look forward to hearing some more great updates of your career.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching another episode of Dan and Don's Toxic Masculinity. You better like, subscribe, and share, or I'm going to come to your house.